Has Scott Frost made any comments as to the condition of the talent, the personnel when he arrived, and if he was surprised at all?
Oh yeah, he was shocked. I mean, completely shocked that it could have dropped down to the levels that it did. I mean, guys weren't accountable when he got here. Guys were lazy. They weren't required to be in the weight room. They weren't required to eat a specific diet. They could go out and eat McDonald's anytime they wanted to. It was a joke, really. Yeah, he could not believe how bad it was, and yeah, he's commented on that several times. And you know, you're talking about young kids that are really talented, but you know, if their head's not in it and their heart's not in it, then you don't need those guys around here. And I think that's been like the biggest problem with, you know, it's been a lot of guys that were settled in this program that you needed to have time to get them out of here and to, you know, have them move on and graduate or leave on their own. But yeah, I mean, this program had gotten down. I mean, a lot of people did not realize how low things had gotten around here, as far as even not welcoming back former stars, you know, former legends around here. It got to that point where you know, guys wouldn't even want to come around here because they weren't welcome. And you had to change a lot of that. I mean, the culture just shifted, and just you had administrations in here that didn't care about the legends of, you know, college football, of what this game meant to this whole state. And you see what it did, and it's taken so long to get things changed around. And I you know, with Bill Moose as an AD, that was the first move to get things going in the right direction. And you know, with him and Scott Frost, like I said, it's going to take time, but those guys have got it figured out. They're going to get it right. And you know, Bill Moose is a guy that, you know, this guy, all he does is hire stars. I mean, he's hired Scott Frost, he's hired Fred Hoiberg. You know, Nebraska does what they need to do to get this thing turned around, and they're gonna. So
Scott Frost, the two previous jobs being at Oregon and it being at UCF as a head coach and an offensive coordinator, in addition to his ties to Nebraska, you know, it all just seemed to be perfect. It was like, this guy's a young guy with energy. He's got a presence about him. He's strong. He's, you know, can command a room, command a team, but he's still young enough to have that energy and drive. And he's also proven it. Look what he did at UCF, and then look at what he did as an offensive coordinator at Oregon. And the ties to the program are just obvious. You know, when you can bring back a hero who's performed at the highest level and won national championships, there's hardly any programs that can really do that. Bring a guy who won a national championship and has proven himself as a coach is pretty rare. And he did so much again with the offenses at those two spots. Do you think he's gotten to a point? Has he made any comments that maybe he's not as innovative as he would like to be because he can't be, or doesn't feel as though the personnel allows him to be?
No, and I don't think he would admit that. I don't think, you know, he's not the kind of guy that wants to show any chinks in the armor. You know, but, and kind of, you know, when you think about it too, ever since he got this job, it was really kind of been behind the eight ball, it seems like. I mean, he hasn't even had like a regular season yet. You know, when he first got here, the first game of the year got canceled against Akron because of a freak thunderstorm. And so you didn't even get to play your home opener after you had the tunnel walk. You had 90,000 people all ready to go for Scott Frost's opening night, and then all of a sudden you're stuck there till midnight until the game gets canceled, and then you go out against Colorado the next game, and Adrian Martinez gets hurt, and I guess that's the second year Adrian Martinez gets hurt, and you know, then you have a COVID year, so nothing has even
That was the first year, wasn't it?
yeah, it was.
Frost has been there for 3 years. It was the one in Lincoln, right, against Colorado.
He got hurt in that game, but I meant he was hurt last year because he never really recovered from that because that was that hit that the Colorado guy had made, the little extracurricular bending of the ankle there that he got caught on camera doing. But yeah, then the second year last year, being behind the 8 ball, not having a healthy Adrian Martinez like you had planned to have, a guy that started the year as a Heisman candidate, and you don't have him all year, and you struggle with a backup, several backups, and then this year, it's strange for everybody. So we're still kind of waiting to have a true season as we remember them to be with this coaching staff. So, but yeah, I think he's a smart enough guy to take a look at himself, and he surrounds himself with guys that are winners and that he can trust. And, that comes along, he's a disciple of Tom Osborne. Same way. Tom Osborne surrounded himself with all kinds of winners, guys that could get the job done, to do the things that Tom didn't have to do. Tom Osborne was not one of those coaches that would come in your face and curse you out up and down. He had other guys to do that for you. He wasn't going to do that to you. And Coach Frost is kind of like that too. Coach Frost kind of uses humor a little bit more than Coach Osborne used to. But, they're cut out of the same cloth. And, like I said, they're smart enough that they surround themselves with the guys that can get that job done. And, if there are any questions about that, I'm sure that Coach Frost is going to be addressing that real soon here. And I'm not trying to throw any assistant coaches under the bus at all, because these guys are all great guys, and they have proven that they can win as a team, as a coaching staff. So I expect them, next year, once they get things, I think all the problems right now are offensively, because we've seen the defense getting much better. And once they get these kinks worked out offensively, I don't know if that's Scott Frost giving up calling plays. Coach Lubick, I'm not sure where he stands with all of this. I don't know if he wants to be calling the plays at this point. But, we've just seen this inconsistent offense that it needs to get worked out. And, you're not going to win many games in the Big Ten if you can't mix it up like that, because defenses are just too good. They're going to take away what you can do and not let you do anything. So, yeah, I expect things to be much better. And, like I said earlier, though, too, that it's murderer's row with a schedule that is not going to be forgiving whatsoever. The only good news about that schedule is the final 4 games are at home of the season.
So, Greg, this is a bit of a loaded question in that every situation's different. Every program's different in this situation. But everybody, it's not an excuse, because everybody has to undergo it at some point when there's a transition of coaches. So typically that previous coach usually gets fired on Black Sunday, the day after the season ends. We see about, not as many this year, but usually about 12 to 15 coaches gone around college football. Then there's a mad scramble and domino effect from there. So that's right with this early signing period for the past 4 years, right in the middle of recruiting and all of that. So then there's typically a coach that's hired in the next week to 2 weeks, something in that range around bowl play near the first of the year. And they're trying to play catch up with a class that was usually signed right around the time they're getting hired.
Yeah.
And then most of those, I think we're at about 85% of it signed in December, as opposed to now only about 10 to 15, 20% maybe in February. I guess I'm speaking the obvious challenges, but you being a recruiting guy, maybe outline a little bit better the challenge that first year for a coach coming in, trying to just maintain a class.
Well, yeah, because, back when we were doing this, when I was on the national side of things, signing day was like Christmas, and it was always that first Wednesday in February. And that's what your payoff was for. You worked so hard all year to get to that day and, you know, to sign that class. And I remember, you know, we'd go in at Rivals. We would go in at 4 in the morning on signing day, and we wouldn't leave there until about 4 a.m. the next day. It was crazy. And, you know, every coach knew that was their sign, you know, that was the day, that's what you were working for. This is your class. This is the day that it's going to pay off for you. Now, like you said, all of a sudden you get done with your season and you lose a coach, and you've already got this class already signed, and now you've got a new guy coming in. You got to start all the way over again and re-recruit these guys that are already committed to your school. That's probably the biggest hurdle. When Scott Frost got in here, you know, he was still trying to coach Central Florida in a bowl game. And so he was flying back and forth from Orlando to Lincoln like a crazy guy, trying to keep the guys committed that were in the class already, that were committed to Mike Riley. And he did a heck of a job, really, salvaging that class and then adding a few pieces to it. But that's the – I mean, for a coach, I mean, and even to do what he did was incredible. I mean, most of these guys are going to leave their old school and not stay on. I mean, most of those schools don't want them to stay on. That's why they fired them. But you know, he felt obligated to stay there and coach those guys in their last game, and he did. And I don't think the guy slept for about 2 months. And you could tell he was really run down, and that took a lot out of him. And you know what? I don't know if he's even recovered from that yet. I mean, that's just how hard it was. And I feel so sorry for any of these coaches that have to take over. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the early signing day because it has turned into now it is your major signing day. And the late one in February is now kind of an afterthought. It's just kind of, it's there for the guys that, you know, didn't want to make their choice, you know, still trying to think things through, didn't have that gut feeling. And so then that turns the second signing day now into it's such a more watered down pool of guys out there. You don't see, you know, how signing day used to be when, you know, everybody was making their announcement. They weren't just signing; they were making their commitment. You know, doing the hat trick on the table all the time. And you know, I've done many of those myself. I've been on the other end of that camera for Rivals many a signing days. And it's just not like that anymore. You know, nowadays the kids they're announcing their commitments on Twitter, and they're having somebody else do a hype video for them or what have you. And so it's really watered it down, in my opinion. And it makes, anytime there's that coaching change, man, it makes that job twice as difficult. And, you know, you're still trying to scramble around. Maybe you're lucky enough not to have like a huge class that you need to sign. Maybe, you know, if you're lucky to be one of those that only has like 14 or 15 scholarship open, but it's a pain in the butt. And I guarantee you the coaches, they feel that. And the ones that are established and know they're not going to go anywhere, they love this new signing day. They love getting it done when they get it done. And then they can kind of coast like Nebraska's doing right now with no pressure. But when there's that coaching change, obviously, yeah, you're way behind the 8 ball.